The Marvel Cinematic Universe has become so much more than a series of connected films. It's truly become a shared universe of movies, broadcasts, streaming shows. We're gonna miss you, Defenders, R.I.P. There's short films and even comic book tie-ins. With so many moving pieces, there are parts of the story we've learned from outside of the movie theaters. So today, we're going to look at some of these MCU revelations that came from a different source. There was a lot to like in Captain America: Civil War, and most of it happened in the middle of an airport in Germany. Aside from seeing our favorite heroes hash out their differences, there were a few breakout stars that entered the MCU during the Inter-Avengers shenanigans. One of those was the prince who became King of Wakanda, T'Challa. When we met him, we saw someone who already has the powers of the Black Panther, which might seem confusing since in the Black Panther movie, we see him gaining the throne and mantle of Black Panther. In the tie-in comics, we learn that the Wakandan prince has been filling the role for his aging father for a decade, as the pair watch Tony Stark introduce himself to the world as Iron Man. As it turns out, King T'Chaka had just passed down the mantle of Wakandan protector to his son T'Challa a week prior. After securing his title from challengers M'Baku and Eric Killmonger, T'Challa took Wakanda to the world stage, and the Black Panther was in the Avengers contact list. A lot of people had a bad day when Thanos came to town. In fact, Thanos coming to town is inherently a bad day for someone, even Thanos sometimes. We didn't see what happened on Xandar, but judging by the huge grudge both Gamora and Drax carry for the big purple people eater when he visited their planet, it probably wasn't pretty. When Thanos' ship, the Sanctuary 2, which is kind of a mean name, all things considered, the Sanctuary 2. Anyway, when it came from the fleeing Asgardians at the beginning of Infinity War, the Asgardians had already been having a few bad days of their own. Their king had died, his sons had been exiled, and his banished daughter showed up and started breaking things. Even worse, the only way to get rid of her was to get an even bigger bad guy to destroy their homeland completely. After quickly becoming a fan favorite, Valkyrie was nowhere to be found when the Mad Titan started monologuing all over the fallen Asgardians. Fears that the last of Asgard's special forces had been lost in the battle were set aside when, during the director's commentary, the usually tight-lipped Russo brothers let us know that Valkyrie had led half of the Asgardians to safety, including herself, in an escape pod. When your superpower is smashing things, you might not have a lot of fans, but you also aren't going to have too many people who want to end up on the business end of a smashing more than once. This isn't to say that there aren't some that share a special hate for the ever-loving Hulk, one of those being the gamma-radiated genius, the Leader. In the MCU, Stearns got an upgrade in his supervillain job as a scientist, hoping to help Banner manage his angrier half. For his troubles, he got pushed around by Emil Blonsky, who wanted some of that sweet gamma-radiated rage strength. Gamma radiation. While we never got to see Stearns become the Leader, we saw the process start as his head began to grow. It was in a tie-in comic that we learned Stearns' fate, as Black Widow came in to clean up after the Thriller in New York, where Abomination and the Hulk went a few rounds. Not willing to have a third gamma-radiated person running around, Romanov shoots the emerging Leader in the leg and takes him into custody. Of course, shortly after that, it turns out S.H.I.E.L.D. was infiltrated by Hydra, so his current whereabouts are unknown. Girlfriends and boyfriends alike can get a little upset when their significant other stops calling for a while, so if you do, it's best to have a really good excuse. Even then, they'll still probably be a little upset. For Thor, that excuse was that the pathway between his realm and our own was broken by his ambitious and conniving adopted brother Loki. When Loki's your brother, things can get complicated and quickly. No sooner had he gone and broke the Bifrost bridge that connects Asgard to the Nine Realms, Loki went and made an ill-fated alliance with Thanos and invaded the Earth. Hey, how'd that work out for you there, Loki? Not very good. We're pretty sure he's dead, but maybe he'll come back? We'll miss you anyway. While we know that the Asgardians were working to rebuild the Bifrost, we didn't know how exactly. Thanks to a tie-in comic for the Dark World, we learned that, while retrieving the scheming Loki, Thor also needs the Tesseract and the Space Stone inside to restore the Bifrost to its space-bridging ways. It wasn't in time to save Thor's relationship with Jane Foster, though. Chin up, big guy. With abs like that, you'll be fine. Even the other Asgardians were shipping you a Sif anyway. As sidekicks go, War Machine's gotta be one of the best, right? Far from being the gee gosh kidnap victim, James Rhodey Rhodes is an accomplished pilot and soldier in his own right. He only lacks a chest-mounted arc reactor and the Stark genius. But rather than being a pupil to the titular hero, War Machine keeps the genius billionaire playboy philanthropist grounded and focused on the responsibilities of martial power. There was no stronger moment than that when a drunk Stark went on a birthday bender in his Iron Man suit. That sent Rhodes to the Mark II armor to put Stark in check and make the War Machine a force to be reckoned with on his own, as soon as they replaced the disappointing hammer tech, that is, which is what made his absence when the skies opened over New York and started spewing aliens all the more perplexing. Surely Rhodes could have helped with their pest problem. Thanks to the Iron Man 3 tie-in comic, we learned Rhodey had his hands full with the 10 rings in Hong Kong, dealing with a nuclear tank made by Hammer Technologies. That company's motto must be, "No idea is a bad idea." Throughout most of Loki's career as a mastermind villain, his weapon of choice was his cunning. What more do you need when you're the god of mischief? When Loki showed up in Midgard, that little pale blue dot we call Earth, he had a new mind-bending weapon in hand. Loki's scepter was pretty sweet, but what powered it was even more intriguing. The Mind Stone gave Loki the power over both Dr. Selvig and Hawkeye for a time, making them unwitting minions of the mischievous Loki. His main goal, aside from ruling over Earth, was to acquire the Tesseract, which contained the Space Stone. This opened a portal to allow the Chitauri to invade, but it also would have given the Mad Titan Thanos another stone for his gauntlet. While we saw Thor in a post-Hulk beatdown, Loki headed off to Asgard with the Tesseract to repair the Bifrost Bridge. But it wasn't as clear what happened to the scepter. We later find out that Strucker had been using it to give powers to a pair of Sokovian twins. But how did he get it? In the Age of Ultron tie-in comic, we learn it went through a disgruntled SHIELD agent recruited by Hydra. They always find a way. For fans of the Iron Man comics, one of the more iconic villains who have a serious hate for Tony Stark is the Mandarin. When the third installment of Iron Man was announced, we were all stoked to see this classic villain brought to life by none other than Sir Ben Kingsley. It turns out that the thing that we wouldn't see coming was that Sir Ben wasn't really playing the Mandarin, but an out-of-work actor named Trevor instead. He definitely wasn't playing the Mandarin with his 10 powerful space rings that he got from the crashed spaceship of alien dragons. Yeah, that might have been a hard sell that early in the MCU, but it didn't mean fans weren't disappointed that they didn't get a proper Mandarin. For those that took home the DVD of Thor: The Dark World, for whatever reason, there was a glimmer of hope in the form of a Marvel one-shot. The short film All Hail the King gave us a glimpse into Trevor Slattery's life in prison after the events of Iron Man 3. While he had notoriety for his role as the Mandarin, it turns out that it attracted the attention of someone who wasn't a fan. The real Mandarin, you know, leader of the Ten Rings. When it comes to hating Bruce Banner and the Hulk, Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross was first in line. He hated Banner before the green guy ever came along, when Banner was dating his daughter. Parents are rough when it comes to dating. Ross was willing to go to some pretty extreme lengths to stop the Hulk from smashing, even ending up with a rage monster of his own in Emil Blonsky, the Abomination. At the end of the movie, with the Abomination put down and Banner trying to find his center, we got our second post-credit scene of the MCU with Tony Stark meeting a despondent General Ross at a bar. Presumably, this was to recruit some more members for Fury's Avengers initiative, but of course, there's no way old Thunderbolt was going to sign off on the Hulk being a part of the Avengers. In the one-shot, The Consultant, we learned that the official line was that Blonsky was the hero of the fight in New York, and that Ross wants him as part of the team, which is something that no one else wants. So that's why the brash Tony Stark is sent to talk to Ross about the initiative. It was to annoy Ross and have him pull out, leaving the door open for Banner. Ultron managed to put the Avengers into more than a few tight spots, but when he decided to smash a city into the ground to end humanity, they were stuck having to not only fight off an army of Ultron drones, but save the people in the city. Just in time, Nick Fury and loyal SHIELD agent Cameron Klein show up with a fully functional helicarrier to help shuttle people off the city turned projectile. Last time we'd seen the helicarriers was in Winter Soldier, when they were rigged for Project Insight, which just so happened to be a Hydra plot. So of course, course, he blew them all up, but then where did Fury get the helicarrier to save the Sokovians? Well, Fury's a man of a lot of secrets, and for this, he had one of his secrets take care of that. During the series Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where Nick Fury had revived Agent Coulson without telling the Avengers, Coulson had a mothballed helicarrier in a secret base called the Theta Protocol facility. The fact that S.H.I.E.L.D. was hiding a helicarrier actually played out on the series long after the events of Age of Ultron. There's no doubt that the biggest movie in the MCU so far has been Infinity War, which also just so happens to have the biggest bummer of an ending, with many of our new and old favorite characters becoming dust in the wind. While we saw many of the characters who survived and many who turned to dust, it did leave us with big questions as to who wasn't on screen during the snap. Well, thanks to some of the actors playing the characters in question and the Russos themselves, we've found out who some of the survivors are, which happens to include Shuri, despite her showing up in the missing files that Bruce Banner is looking at. Other characters that have checked in safe from the snapping include the lovable Aunt May, Queen Ramonda of Wakanda, Valkyrie, and none other than Howard the Duck. You can't keep a bad duck down, apparently. While he's only had the briefest of cameos, there's a connection with the hard-drinking duck of the MCU and Infinity War. In early drafts of the script, Star-Lord sought out Howard for information on where Gamora went. After Johann Schmidt, aka Red Skull, tried to grab the Tesseract with his bare hand and was shunted off into space, little was known about the iconic Captain America villain's fate. That is, until the surprise reveal during Infinity War, where we find out that he's at Vormir, tasked with telling whoever seeks the Soul Stone what grave cost it asks of them. We didn't have much time to recover from the surprise appearance of Red Skull before we find out what price Thanos is willing to pay for the Soul Stone. Just in case you forgot, he threw his adopted daughter Gamora, the only person that he loved, off of a cliff. Thanos ain't winning Father of the Year anytime soon, that's for sure. Of course, now that he has the stone, what does that mean for Red Skull? His duties as docent for the Soul Stone are no longer needed, so can he leave? It turns out, yes, he's free to go. During a Q&A with the Russos, the question was put to the brothers and they confirmed that, with the Soul Stone gone, Red Skull is free to follow his ambition in the universe. As a wraith in service of the Soul Stone for almost 80 years, who knows what that might be? Being the right-hand man to Nick Fury and a liaison between an organization like S.H.I.E.L.D. and a group of superheroes is a tough job. It takes someone with a lot of composure, even if he's face-to-face with one of his heroes unfrozen from the ice. For Nick Fury and the Avengers, that man was one Phil Coulson. Whether it was managing the unmanageable Tony Stark or introducing the God of Thunder to Midgard, Coulson managed to keep calm and do his job with a smile. It's that unflappability and general likability that made it so tragic when Loki stabbed him in the back. Now, Nick Fury was able to use the tragic death of Coulson to motivate Earth's mightiest heroes to come back together as the Avengers. Of course, Fury couldn't let his best agent just die, so he sent him to Tahiti, which is a magical place. It turns out that it stands for Terrestrialized Alien Host Integrative Tissue Eye. That's a protocol using a fallen Kree to revive a fallen Avenger, which Fury fully considered for Coulson. Of course, with his sacrifice bringing the team together, he can't just tell the Avengers he's back, but he's been holding down the fort in ABC's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where we learned his fate. Iron Man's popularity happened both on and off screen. Robert Downey Jr. was an instant fan favorite, playing the playboy Tony Stark, and Iron Man became a huge hit with young and old viewers alike. This was true of the fictional world Iron Man as well. By the events of Iron Man 2, old Shellhead had amassed a legion of fans, many of whom were in attendance during the Stark Expo. That included one brave little kid in an Iron Man mask and gloves who stands up to one of the hammer drones that Anton Vanko unleashed. At the time of Iron Man 2, the rights of some of the Marvel properties were scattered around. Fox had the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, and Sony had Spider-Man, meaning the web-slinger couldn't appear in the MCU. Thankfully, Sony and Marvel Studios were able to come to an agreement that allowed the most iconic Marvel character to finally join the MCU in Civil War before his own movie, Homecoming. This addition led fans to speculate that the Iron Man kid was in fact a young and impressionable pre-Spider-Bite Peter Parker. Tom Holland confirmed that that was the case in an interview with the Huffington Post, but it turns out that he hadn't gotten Kevin Feige to confirm that. Holland simply thought it was cool, and so do we. Thanks for not being as tight-lipped as the rest of those involved in the MCU films, Tom. We appreciate it. Ever since the Sokovia and the Ultron incident, Nick Fury has been pretty scarce in the MCU. He managed to show up in the end credits of Infinity War, only to be dusted away as he paged Captain Marvel. While Nick Fury is a man of many secrets, it turns out that he was trying to protect the least secret thing that he had put together, the Avengers. In the tie-in comic for Infinity War, we see Nick Fury visiting the various Avengers doing his best to patch things up and get the band back together. Ultimately, he's unsuccessful, as the scars are a little too fresh between the scattered heroes. Even with the impending threat of Thanos and his unstoppable quest for the Infinity Stones, Tony Stark is reluctant to call Steve Rogers to find out where Vision and the Mind Stone might be. Fury and Hill are seen next in a post-credits scene about to direct Klein and Helicarrier 64 from the Theta Protocol to Wakanda when the sky starts falling. This leads Fury to resorting to his plan B, Captain Marvel. Maybe we'll learn more about this plan in the Captain Marvel movie, or maybe we'll have to wait until Endgame hits theaters. It used to be said that no one is gone for good in comics except Uncle Ben, Jason Todd, and Bucky Barnes. That's what made the return of Bucky Barnes as a super soldier out of his own time for Hydra such a shocking reveal. When the story of the Winter Soldier hit the big screen as Captain America's second solo outing, little was known about the project that turned Bucky Barnes into the Winter Soldier. It turns out that you should be careful who you make cellmates. In the short-lived series Agent Carter, Peggy Carter worked to foil the plans of a man calling himself Dr. Ivchenko. It turns out that he was really Johann Fenhoff, the alias of Captain America villain Dr. Faustus all along. Fenhoff can hypnotize people, almost forcing Howard Stark to drop a chemical agent on Times Square. For some reason, and this may have been the Hydra infiltration, they put him in the same cell as Red Skull's R&D guy Arnim Zola. Together, they begin planning for the Winter Soldier project. This isn't the only shout out to the movies in Agent Carter either. There was even a connection to Iron Man 2's villain Whiplash when his father still worked with Howard Stark. Those are some of the things that we learned about the MCU from outside the movies. What corner of the MCU do you get your information from? Is there anything that we may have missed? Let us know in the comments section, it's below, and don't forget to subscribe to CBR for more MCU videos. Thanks for watching.